Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and I'm really happy you are here with us today.
And I'm Julia. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you are listening in the morning, during your study time, or even before going to bed, we are very glad you are here learning English with us.
That's right. And today, we have a very interesting topic that many English learners are curious about. The topic is, can you learn English while sleeping?
Yes, this is something many beginners ask. Some people say, if I play English audio while I sleep, will my brain learn English automatically?
Exactly. Imagine this. You go to sleep at night, and while you are sleeping, your brain is still learning English. It sounds amazing, right?
It really does. Many learners are busy during the day. They have work, school, family responsibilities, and many other things. So they wonder, is it possible to use my sleeping time to improve my English?
That's a great question. And the truth is, our brain is actually very powerful. Even when we are resting, our brain continues to process information and organize what we learned during the day.
But there is also a lot of confusion about this topic. Some people believe that you can become fluent in English just by sleeping and listening to audio.
If it were that easy, everyone would be fluent already.
Exactly. But the good news is that sleep can actually help your learning process if you use the right method.
In today's episode, we are going to explain how your brain works during sleep, how listening to English before bedtime can help you remember vocabulary, and how beginners can use a simple night routine to improve their English.
And don't worry, we will explain everything in simple and clear English, so even beginner learners can understand and follow the tips.
So if you've ever wondered, can I really learn English while sleeping? Stay with us, because in this episode we're going to explore the truth behind this idea.
And by the end of this podcast, you'll learn a few simple techniques you can start using tonight to make your English learning even more effective.
All right, let's get started. All right, Julia, let's talk about the big question many learners have. Can you really learn English while sleeping?
Yes, this question is very popular. Many people search for Learn English while sleeping videos online. Some learners hope they can just play English audio at night, go to sleep, and wake up speaking English fluently.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Imagine going to bed as a beginner and waking up the next morning speaking English like a native speaker.
That sounds like a dream, but the truth is a little different. Sleeping alone cannot magically teach you English.
Exactly. When you are sleeping, your brain is resting. You are not actively studying grammar, practicing speaking, or learning new vocabulary in the same way you do when you are awake.
However, that does not mean sleep is useless for learning. In fact, sleep plays a very important role in how we remember things.
Yes, that's a great point. During sleep, your brain organizes and stores information that you learned during the day. It's like your brain is cleaning and arranging files in a computer.
So if you listened to English, practiced vocabulary, or studied some new expressions during the day, your brain may review and strengthen those memories while you sleep.
And that's why listening to English audio before sleeping, or even very softly during sleep, can sometimes help your brain become more familiar with the sounds of the language.
But it's important to remember one thing. Sleeping is not a replacement for studying. It is only a support tool that can help your learning process.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Your real learning happens when you practice listening, speaking, reading, and learning vocabulary during the day.
And sleep helps your brain remember those things better.
So the short answer to our big question is this. You cannot learn English only by sleeping, but sleep can definitely help your brain remember and process what you study.
And in the next part of our podcast, we're going to explain something really interesting. How your brain actually learns and processes information during sleep.
Yes. Once you understand how the brain works, you can use sleep in a smarter way to improve your English learning.
So stay with us because the next part is going to be very interesting and helpful for beginner English learners.
Let's continue. All right, Julia. Now that we understand that sleep can support learning, let's talk about something very interesting. What actually happens in our brain while we are sleeping?
Yes, this is fascinating. Many people think the brain completely shuts down when we sleep, but that's not true at all. In fact, the brain is still very active during sleep.
Exactly. While your body is resting, your brain is busy organizing and storing information that you learned during the day.
Think of it like this. During the day, your brain collects many pieces of information. New words, sounds, sentences, and ideas. But everything is a little messy.
Right. And when you go to sleep, your brain begins to organize those things. It decides what information is important and stores it in your long-term memory.
This process is very important for language learning. If you study English during the day, maybe you learn some new vocabulary or listen to a conversation, your brain may strengthen those memories while you sleep.
Yes, and this is why many experts say that good sleep actually improves learning and memory.
Another interesting thing is that your brain can still recognize sounds while you are sleeping, especially familiar sounds.
So if you listen to simple English audio before sleeping, or very quietly during sleep, your brain may become more familiar with the rhythm, pronunciation, and sounds of English.
But again, it's important to remember that this works best if you already listen to the same material while you are awake.
Exactly. Your brain is not learning something completely new while sleeping. Instead, it is reviewing and strengthening what you already heard or practiced earlier.
So in a simple way, sleep acts like a helper. It helps your brain remember English better.
And that's why many successful learners combine daytime practice with relaxed listening before sleep.
In the next part of our podcast, we'll talk about something very practical. Why listening to English before bedtime can actually help beginners improve their English.
Yes, and we'll also share some simple ideas you can start using tonight.
So let's move to the next section.
Now that we understand how the brain works during sleep, let's talk about something very practical. Why does listening to English before sleep help with learning?
That's a great question. One reason is that our brain is usually very relaxed before we go to sleep. At that time, we are not stressed, we are not rushing, and our mind is calm.
Exactly. And when the mind is relaxed, it becomes easier to absorb information. This is why many learners find it helpful to listen to English at night.
For example, imagine you are lying in bed and listening to a simple English conversation or a short English story. You are not trying too hard to memorize every word. You are just listening and relaxing.
Right. And this kind of relaxed listening helps your brain become familiar with the natural sounds and rhythm of English.
Over time, your brain starts recognizing common words, phrases, and pronunciation patterns.
This is especially helpful for beginners because listening regularly can improve both vocabulary and pronunciation.
Another important point is repetition. When you listen to the same audio many times, your brain slowly remembers the words and sentences.
Yes, repetition is one of the most powerful ways to learn a language. Even if you don't understand everything at first, Hearing the same sounds again and again helps your brain learn naturally.
And when you listen before sleeping, your brain may continue processing those sounds while you rest.
So the combination of relaxed listening, repetition, and sleep memory can support your English learning.
But remember, this works best when the audio is slow, clear, and easy to understand, especially for beginner learners.
Exactly. If the English is too fast or too difficult, it may become confusing instead of helpful.
In the next part of our podcast, we're going to share the most important section of today's episode, the best method beginners can use to learn English while sleeping.
Yes, we'll explain a simple step-by-step routine that you can follow every night.
So stay with us because the next part will give you some very practical tips.
Let's continue. All right, Julia, now let's talk about the most important part of today's episode. What is the best way to learn English while sleeping?
Yes, and the good news is that the method is actually very simple. Beginners don't need anything complicated. They just need a small routine before going to bed.
Exactly. So let's explain it step by step. The first step is to listen to English for about 20 to 30 minutes before sleeping.
Right. This could be a simple English podcast, a short story, or a basic conversation. The important thing is that the English should be slow and easy to understand.
Step number 2 is to repeat some words or sentences softly while you are listening. This helps your brain focus on the sounds and pronunciation.
Yes, even repeating just a few words can help your memory a lot. It also improves your speaking ability.
The third step is very simple. When you are ready to sleep, you can leave the audio playing quietly in the background.
But remember, the volume should be very low and comfortable. The goal is not to disturb your sleep, but to let your brain hear familiar English sounds.
And the final step is to listen to the same audio again the next day. Repetition is very powerful for language learning.
When you follow this simple routine regularly, your brain slowly becomes more familiar with English words, pronunciation, and sentence patterns.
It may not feel like a big change in one night, but with consistency, it can really support your learning.
In the next part of our podcast, we'll talk about something very useful for beginners. What types of English audio work best for learning while sleeping?
Yes, because choosing the right material can make a big difference.
So let's move to the next section.
Now that we know the best method for learning English while sleeping, the next important question is, what type of audio should you listen to?
That's a very important point, especially for beginners. Not every type of English audio is helpful. Some materials are too fast or too complicated.
Exactly. The best audio for this method is slow, clear, and simple English.
For example, learners can listen to English learning podcasts, especially ones made for beginners.
Another great option is simple English conversations. These help you hear natural sentence patterns and everyday vocabulary.
Yes, and short English stories are also very useful. Stories are easier to remember because they have meaning and context.
Some learners also like to listen to basic vocabulary recordings where words are repeated slowly and clearly.
The key idea is this: choose audio that you can mostly understand. If the English is too difficult, your brain may feel confused instead of learning.
In the next part of our podcast, we'll talk about some common mistakes beginners should avoid when trying to learn English while sleeping.
Yes, because avoiding these mistakes can make your learning much more effective.
So let's continue. Now, let's talk about a few common mistakes beginners should avoid when trying to learn English while sleeping.
Yes, because if you use this method the wrong way, it may not help very much. One common mistake is listening to English that is too difficult.
Exactly. If the audio is very fast or full of advanced vocabulary, beginners may not understand it, and the brain cannot learn effectively.
Another mistake is playing the audio too loudly while sleeping. This can disturb your sleep and make you feel tired the next day.
Right. The sound should always be soft and comfortable, just enough to hear the English in the background.
A third mistake is expecting instant results. Learning a language takes time and patience.
Yes, listening while sleeping is only a supporting tool. You still need to practice English during the day. Speaking, listening, reading, and learning new words.
When you combine daytime practice with good sleep and relaxed listening, your learning can become much more effective.
In the next section, we'll share a simple night routine that beginners can follow to make this method part of their daily learning habit.
So let's continue.
Now let's make this idea very practical. Julia, many beginners may ask, what should I actually do every night to use this method?
That's a great question. The good news is that the routine is very simple and only takes a few minutes before you go to sleep.
All right, let's go step by step. The first step is to review a few English words or phrases before bedtime.
Yes, for example, you can review 5 to 10 new words that you learned during the day. Try to say them out loud and remember their meanings.
Step number 2 is to listen to a short English podcast or conversation for about 10 to 20 minutes.
Make sure the audio is slow, clear, and easy to understand. The goal is to relax while listening, not to feel stressed.
Step 3 is simple. When you are ready to sleep, you can leave the audio playing quietly in the background.
Right? The volume should be low and comfortable so that it does not disturb your sleep.
And the final step happens the next morning. Listen to the same audio again while you are getting ready for the day.
This repetition helps your brain remember the words and sounds much better.
When you follow this simple night routine regularly, your brain slowly becomes more familiar with English.
Small habits like this can make a big difference over time.
In the next part of our podcast, we'll share a few motivational thoughts and encouragement for beginner English learners.
So stay with us. We're almost at the end.
Before we finish today's episode, we want to share a little motivation for all the beginner English learners who are listening.
Yes, learning a new language can sometimes feel difficult. There may be days when you feel slow or frustrated, and that is completely normal.
Exactly. Every successful English speaker was once a beginner. The most important thing is not perfection. It's consistency.
Even small daily habits, like listening to English for a few minutes before sleeping, can slowly improve your understanding and confidence.
Remember, learning English is not a race. It is a journey that happens step by step.
So don't worry if you don't understand everything right away. Just keep listening, keep practicing, and keep exposing your mind to English every day.
With patience and regular practice, your progress will become stronger and stronger over time.
And most importantly, enjoy the process of learning.
In the final part of our podcast, we'll quickly summarize what we learned today and share a short call to action for our listeners.
So let's move to the final section.
All right, Julia. Let's quickly summarize everything we discussed today so our listeners can remember the key points.
Yes. First, we talked about the big question, can you learn English while sleeping? And we learned that sleep alone doesn't make you fluent, but it can help your brain remember and process what you already learned.
Exactly. Then we explained how the brain works during sleep, organizing and storing information, reviewing what you practiced during the day, and strengthening your memory.
We also shared why listening to English before sleep is helpful. Relaxed listening, repetition, and familiar audio can help your brain remember words and sounds more effectively.
After that, we gave a step-by-step method for learning English while sleeping and explained the types of audio that work best: slow, clear, and simple podcasts, conversations, or stories.
We also talked about common mistakes beginners should avoid, like using difficult audio, playing it too loud, or expecting instant results.
And finally, we shared a simple night routine that beginners can follow. Review a few words, listen to audio before sleeping, let it play quietly during sleep, and repeat it in the morning.
Consistency is key. Even small daily habits like this can make a huge difference over time.
So here's your call to action. Try this method tonight. Choose a short English audio. Follow the simple steps we discussed and see how it helps your learning.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share this podcast with your friends who are learning English, and leave a comment to tell us what audio you tried tonight.
Thank you for listening to the English Learning Podcast. Remember, small steps every day lead to big progress.
See you in the next episode, and happy learning.